Hello and welcome to Environmental Science. I'm Sofia C. Atienza and I will be your lecturer for General Biology. So in this video, we are going to discuss some basic ecological concepts such as ecosystems, energy flow, species interactions, and evolution. So let's start. We will begin with the most important framework in biology. So, this is the levels of biological organization. So, to understand life, we must first understand how it is organized because life is not random. It follows a clear hierarchy. And so we have this hierarchy of life, which describe how living things are structured from the smallest non-living from the smallest living component to the entire living world. So this topic is very common in entrance exams kasi there might be questions na may encounter nyo na you will be asked to arrange yung levels nito in order. You might be asked na to identify what comes next or even apply the concept to real life situations. So, the first thing that we will discuss here is about biosphere. So kapag sinabi nating biosphere, it represents all life and the environments where life exists here on Earth. So yung sa biosphere, included dito lahat ng ecosystems dito sa Earth. An ecosystem includes both living and non-living components. So for example, here we have a meadow or siguro mas familiar tayo sa term na grassland. So this is a habitat dominated by grasses and herbaceous wildflowers. So, as an ecosystem, it also includes yung lupa, kung saan nakatanim yung mga halaman. It also includes the water, the sunlight it receives, and even the organisms like insects and other pollinators na hindi natin nakikita dito sa picture. Now, while ecosystems include both living and non-living factors o yung tinatawag natin na biotic and abiotic factors, siguro na-encounter nyo na rin yung term na biomes. So, biomes are considered broader and larger scale in terms of geographical classifications. Kapag sinabi nating biomes, it is defined by climate. Climate is the main factor in determining the type of biome that exists in a particular region. So next we have community here. So community is composed of diverse species. Ayan siya, parang array of organisms interacting within a habitat. So, kasali na dito yung mga complex relationships katulad ng, let's say, mutualism, parasitism, kung saan may isang nag-benefit, may isang harmed, or even competition for resources. So, a community includes all different populations living together in an area. Ano naman yung population? So, a population consists of organisms of the same species living in the same area. So, for example, here sa ating grassland or meadow, it includes a population of lupine or lupine. Ito siya, yung herbaceous flower na yan. But you know what? May mga questions na pwede mag-arise dun sa definition na yon. Because what makes an organism or what makes organisms the same species? Paano ba natin masabi na species, halimbawa yung mga halaman na to, eh parang lahat naman ng halaman, for example, yung mga flowers, minsan parang mukha sila magkakaparehas. So organisms are classified as the same species primarily if they can interbreed in nature to produce a viable, fertile offspring, sharing a common gene pool. Okay? So kapag interbreed yung tinatawag natin na same species and yung naging product or offspring nila, it's fertile, pwede ding gumawa ng another offspring or capable siya to carry on yung genes nila. So, ibig sabihin, yung nag-interbreed na species, parehas sila. So, this biological species concept, it means na they are reproductively isolated from other groups, from other species. Now, some species may look different, but yung mga members ng species na yon, they share similar genomes or similar DNA. So, example, lions and tigers, alam naman natin na magkaiba sila ng species. They can mate, you know, but yung offspring nila or yung magiging anak nila, they are typically sterile. Meaning, si, or parang pinapatotohanan lang nun na si lion and si tiger, they are different species. Now, if you think about it, there are also dogs na different looking. Hindi naman lahat ng aso na nakikita natin, for example, dito sa Pilipinas, pare-parehas ng itsura. However, they can mate and produce fertile offspring because they are of the same species. Okay? So, yun yung konsepto ng biological species or kung paano natin nasabi na yung mga organisms na to, yung grupo ng organisms na to, they are of the same species. So, an organism is a complete living individual. Each plant in the meadow is an organism, and so is each animal, fungus, and even bacteria na hindi naman natin nakikita sa picture. But we know for sure na may mga ganong klase ng organisms dyan sa meadow na yan. Now, an organ is made of different tissues working together. An organ system is a group of organs that work together to perform major functions. Next, we have tissues. So, a tissue is a group of similar cells working together to perform a specific or specialized function. And lastly, we have the cell, the basic unit of life. So this is the life's fundamental unit of structure and function. Now, some organisms consist of a single cell. So, organism pa rin sila kahit isang cell sila, ang tawag sa kanila unicellular. Pero kahit mag-isa lang sila, they can perform all the functions of life. Other organisms are multicellular, like us, humans, and feature a division of labor among specialized cells. So, tayo as multicellular organisms, may division of labor yung mga cell natin. So, halimbawa, may yung, let's say, yung cell ng muscles mo, iba yung trabaho niya sa cells ng blood mo. So, yun, meron silang division of labor. So, example natin dito sa slide, this is a magnified view of a cell that you can find in a leaf tissue. So, kaya natin nakikita to kasi this is about 40 micrometers yung laki niya. And about 500 of them would reach across, let's say, a small coin. Ganon. Ganon sila kaliit. And kaya lang natin sila nakikita or kaya alam natin yung itsura nila. It's because we use microscopes to study cells. Now, within these tiny cells are even smaller green structures called chloroplast. And alam naman natin na yung mga chloroplast, they are responsible for photosynthesis. Kaya may ability yung plant na mag-produce ng sarili niyang food. It's because of them. So, we've just finished talking about the levels of biological organization, which shows us how life is structured. But the real action here happens when these living systems interact with their environment. Now, reiterate lang natin ulit na an ecosystem is a community of living organisms and their interactions with their abiotic environment, meaning it's not just the organisms themselves na nandyan sa ecosystem, but also the non-living factors like sunlight and water, and even the air that shape how life functions. So, think of a forest. You know, yung mga puno, yung mga halaman, yung mga fungi, they all form the living community. While the rainfall na nare-receive ng forest na yon, yung temperature year-round sa forest, and even the soil nutrients na meron yung lupa doon, they form the abiotic environment. And together, they create a dynamic system where energy flows and matter recycles. Now we have three broad categories of ecosystems based on their general environment. So we have freshwater ecosystems, yan yung sa mga ilog, lawa. Then next we have marine or ocean water. Nandiyan naman yung mga coral reefs and the entire open ocean. And we have terrestrial ecosystems. Dito yung mga forests, grasslands, deserts, and etc. And within these broad categories are individual ecosystem types, each defined by the organisms present and the environmental habitat. So, one of the most important terrestrial ecosystems is the tropical rainforest. And this biome is especially relevant to us here in the Philippines because it's part of our natural heritage. And common to sa mga exams dito kasi syempre, nandito tayo sa Philippines, so mas napapag-aralan to ng mga scientists, ng mga researchers, and so mas lumalabas to sa mga questions na lalo na kapag yung question nagpe-pertain siya about sa mga recent discoveries, data analysis, ganon. So this biome is found in equatorial regions, meaning hindi lang tayo yung meron na ganitong type ng biome, where rainfall is high, mataas yung rainfall sa mga ganitong region, and the temperatures are consistently warm. So in the Philippines, one of the major forest type is the tropical lowland evergreen rainforest, or also known as the dipterocarp forest. So dipterocarps are trees belonging to genera like Shorea, Hopea, and Dipterocarpus, which dominate this forest, making up about 75% of the tree species in the Philippines. Ngayon yung maitsura ng mga trees na to, ito yung mga matatangkad na trees. They are parang towering trees na nagpo-form ng dense canopy or sinasabi natin shade na importante sila kasi they help to regulate climate, especially since we are in a hot region, medyo mainit or medyo warm yung region natin. So, they help to regulate the climate that we have. They also provide habitat for countless species of plants and animals. For example, sa Mindanao, Dipterocarp forest shelter endangered species like the Philippine eagle. Now, yung dense canopy, sinusuportahan din niya yung mga epiphytes like orchids and ferns. While yung forest floor is it's home for diverse insects and amphibians. Other than that, this forest also provide timber and non-timber resources, though yung mga unsustainable logging activities and illegal mining, natitreaten na nun yung survival ng forest natin. Now, sa mga entrance exams, they might ask you to identify yung biome based on climate and vegetation. So, kapag nakita mo na yung word na equatorial region, high rainfall, um, evergreen trees, ganon. So, ang answer na natin doon ay tropical rainforest. So, again, you know, it's, it's just one of the probability na lumabas to. But I'm not saying na lumalabas to sa mga exams or parang expect na natin na lumabas. So, I'm just reminding you to be prepared na baka itanong ito or baka yung tanong ay patungkol dito. Other than that, isa pang common exam question ay yung mga dominant species. So remember, in the Philippines, na yung Dipterocarp, they make up about 75% of the tree species here in the Philippines. So unlike rainforests, grasslands, ito yun, are shaped by lower rainfall and are dominated by grasses rather than, trees. Yung biome na to, since dominated siya by grasses, ang cause or yung nagko-cause doon ay dahil sa mababang precipitation, annual precipitation, kaya mababa lang din or parang let's say maliliit yung mga halaman. Kasi there are few trees here except those found growing, along rivers or streams where water is more available. So in the Philippines, the dominant vegetation consists of dwarf bamboo and grasses. Yung mga grasses, especially kogon and talahib. So yung mga plants na yon, they are well adapted to dry seasons and even frequent fires, which prevent large forests from forming around here. Now, cogon grass is common in open fields and is often used for thatching roofs. Nung sikat pa yung ganong klase ng paggawa ng bahay. Pero syempre ngayon parang wala na naman na gumagawa ng parang bubong or roof made of cogon grass kasi medyo mga sementado na yung mga bahay dito sa atin. Talahib grows tall and is frequently seen alongside or along roadsides and riverbanks. Yung mga dwarf bamboo naman, they thrive in upland grasslands providing cover for small animals and preventing soil erosion. So, some exams, they might ask you to distinguish grasslands from forests. Just remember na kapag grassland, kaunti lang yung trees due to limited rainfall. Now, let's take a look at two extreme biomes. We have the tundra and desert. Though they exist in very different parts of the world, they share one important feature. Yun yung limited precipitation, which shapes their vegetation and animal life. Sa Arctic tundra, it is located throughout the Arctic regions of the northern hemisphere where the winters are extremely cold, 'di ba? Ang average temperature ay -34 degrees Celsius, while summers are short and cool, ranging from 3 degrees Celsius to 12 degrees Celsius. Now, yung mga halaman dito, they have a very short growing season of only about 10 to 12 weeks. And the vegetation is limited to mosses, lichens, and small shrubs that can survive the frozen soil. So yung frozen soil, it's called permafrost. Permafrost yung tawag doon. Now, animal life includes caribou, Arctic foxes, and migratory birds that take advantage of the brief summer. Now, if you see permafrost or short growing season sa mga question, so, ang sagot na natin doon ay tundra. On the other hand, the desert biome is defined by dryness. So, ano siya, dry siya yung lugar na to or yung region na to. In some years, evaporation even exceeds precipitation. So, bukod sa sobrang tuyot ng lugar na to, may mga times din na mas mataas pa yung rate ng evaporation kaysa sa nare-receive niya na precipitation. And because of this, deserts have sparse vegetation and low animal diversity. Kasi nga naman, hindi lahat ng animal ay well adapted sa ganitong environment. So plants like cacti and succulents, they store water while animals such as camels, ano pa ba, lizards and scorpions are adapted to conserve water and withstand yung extreme temperatures na nag-occur dito sa desert. Now, if the question mentions very dry climate, evaporation greater than precipitation, so ang tinutukoy na nun ay yung desert. Now, although tundras are cold and deserts are hot, both biomes have vegetation and animal diversity closely tied to low, unpredictable precipitation. And yung key similarity na yon, yung minsan lumalabas or often na highlight sa mga exam. So, again, for questions regarding biomes, tatandaan natin na kapag desert, low rainfall, grasslands dominated by grasses, of course, and rainforests defined by high biodiversity and evergreen trees. So next, we'll continue with aquatic ecosystems. We have two, freshwater and marine or yung ocean. So water biomes are equally important because they cover most of the Earth's surface and sustain countless species, including those vital to human life. So freshwater biomes, It include lakes and ponds, which are standing bodies of water, and rivers and streams, which are flowing systems. So in the Philippines, we have several significant lakes, with Laguna de Bay as the largest. It is also home to several endemic fish species like ayungin and dulong, which are important both ecologically and economically. On the other hand, we have the ocean, which is the largest marine biome, covering more than 70% of the Earth's surface. And within it, yung two components ng Philippine marine ecosystem, which are yung coral reefs and mangroves. Now, coral reefs host thousands of marine species, from fish to invertebrates, and also coral reefs are biodiversity hotspots. Mangroves naman, they serve as nurseries for fish and crustaceans, while also acting as natural buffers against typhoons and coastal erosion. And together, these ecosystems protect communities, especially yung mga communities near them, near those bodies of water. They also support livelihood and maintain ecological balance. Minsan, may mga questions sa exams na tumutukoy sa mga endemic species. Dito nga, nabanggit natin yung ayungin and dulong. So, we can think of the Laguna de Bay. And kapag naisip natin yung lugar kung saan sila, makakonekta natin sila sa freshwater ecosystems. Now, kapag yung question naman, nag-highlight siya ng biodiversity hotspots or nurseries for fish, so the answer is likely coral reefs or mangroves. So just remember na salinity is the key difference between freshwater and marine ecosystems. Meaning, uh, yung saltiness, ganon. So, syempre, mas mataas yung salinity ng marine ecosystem kaysa sa freshwater biomes or freshwater ecosystems. So now that we've reviewed some types of terrestrial and aquatic biomes, let's try to practice applying those ideas to real world scenarios. So when you tackle exam questions like this, scan muna natin yung key na clues. Clues about the climate, vegetation, altitude, yung mga words na ganun. Then, try to match yung mga clues na yon to the biome features that we discussed. So, first, let's try to identify the clues. So, flat land dominated by grasses, frequent fires during the dry season, grasses regrow quickly. Ano kaya sa tingin nyo yung pinapatungkulan nung question na to? You can pause the video and try to answer on your own. If you want to know the answer, then let's continue. Let's try to recall the defining features ng grassland. Ano ba yung characteristics ng grassland? Grasslands have lower annual precipitation than forests. Grasslands are dominated by grasses and yung mga maliliit na woody plants or shrubs. Many grass species are adapted to fire and drought. So let's try to eliminate yung mga parang hindi naman tama sagot. Identify natin na grassland yung pinapatungkulan nito. Pero ano dito sa apat yung tamang sagot? Now, letter B, mali na siya agad because pinatungkulan niya yung permafrost, and permafrost is a tundra feature. Hindi ko malipat yung pen ko. Pero ayan, sige. So, permafrost is a tundra feature. Pero ang pangit nung ano. Sige, ayan. Letter C naman, grasslands are shaded by tall trees which contradict dominated by grasses. So, mali na agad si C and si B. So, we're left with A and D. Siyempre, hindi rin naman siya letter D because cactus stems store water. So, ang dinedescribe nun ay mga succulents na matatagpuan sa desert, not typical grassland vegetation. So, ang tamang sagot dito ay letter A. May mga grass roots, hindi ko sinasabing lahat ng grass species, kaya nilang mag-grow from 4 inches hanggang 8 feet. Pero may mga grass roots na may capability gawin yon. So, yung mga deep root systems na meron sila, they are able or they are capable of transporting vitamins, minerals, and moisture from the soil papunta dun sa plant. Example nun ay mga native na wildflowers or parang prairie flowers and perennial grasses. Let's try to answer another practice question. First, we identify the clues. So, cool weather, pine trees, in contrast with tropical lowlands. So, temperature decreases with altitude. So, ibig sabihin, habang tumataas yung lugar, bumababa yung temperature. And higher elevations can support temperate vegetation even in tropical latitudes. So, ano kaya yung tamang sagot dito sa apat na choices na to? So, mali na agad si letter B, di ba? Because proximity to the ocean affects rainfall and maritime climate, but it does not explain cooler mountain temperatures. Siyempre, hindi rin naman sagot si letter C kasi yung coral reefs ay coastal or marine features. So, ano kaya yung may best match sa kanila? So, the correct answer here is letter A. Higher altitude creates a temperate forest climate. So, yung cooler climate sa Baguio and being pine dominated yung vegetation doon, it galing yon sa pagkakaroon niya ng higher elevation in contrast with Manila na mababa. So even within tropical countries like the Philippines, altitude creates distinct biomes because temperature and sometimes precipitation patterns change with elevation. I think this is the last slide for for the different types of biomes. So just remember na kapag halimbawa may na-encounter kayo na exam question that ask you to classify ecosystems or identify which abiotic factor defines them. For example, yung sa salinity between freshwater and marine ecosystems, and for example then uh, yung rainfall and temperature na defining characteristics ng terrestrial biome. So, mahalaga na maunawaan and maintindihan natin yung difference doon. So, let's try to connect yung ecosystem type dun sa key environmental condition niya. So, kapag naka-encounter tayo ng ganong klase ng question, yun na lang yung gawin natin. You try to connect yung type dun sa defining characteristic ng environment na yun. So we've just defined ecosystems as communities of organisms interacting with their abiotic environment. How naman, or next question that we'll try to figure out is that how does energy move through those systems? 'Di ba kanina napag-usapan lang natin yung tungkol sa ecosystem being um as a community of organisms interacting with the non-living component of their environment. But how does energy move through those systems, through an ecosystem? So meron tayo dito na diagram na nagpapakita kung paano ba nako-convert yung energy na nare-receive natin from the sun papunta dun sa mga um, organisms na nag interact sa environment nila. So we have here plants and algae that capture solar energy through photosynthesis. And through photosynthesis, they store yung energy na yon as a chemical energy in organic molecules. So, siguro mas familiar tayo with sugars. So, producers form the energetic foundation of every ecosystem. So, makikita natin yung mga producers sa lahat ng klase ng ecosystem. Now, from producers to primary consumers naman, herbivores eat producers and obtain energy by metabolizing plant material. So, the energy here is transferred but not fully conserved. Next, we have here from primary to secondary and tertiary. Parang hindi ata nakalagay yung tertiary consumer. Hindi natin masabing tertiary consumer si decomposer kasi iba siya. So, dito kay secondary consumers, carnivores and even omnivores feed up the chain. And each transfer na yan, naglulose ng energy or nagkakaroon ng energy loss. Dito kay decomposer, yung mga fungi and bacteria, they break down the dead organisms and yung mga waste nila, thus returning nutrients to the abiotic environment. And so kapag na-return na yung mga waste na yon, na decompose na sila, it completes the matter cycle. Kumbaga, na-recycle lang yung matter na nasa loob ng ecosystem. We also have here trophic level definitions. Baka mas familiar kayo na ang tawag kay primary producer ay autotrophs. So autotrophs support all other levels, and um baka baka familiar, or baka mas familiar din kayo na kapag ang term kay primary consumer ay herbivores. So kapag herbivores, they eat producers, so para silang mga vegetarian, gano'n. And then yung secondary consumers, they eat the herbivores, so carnivores na sila. Kapag tertiary consumer, they eat other consumers or they eat other carnivores. Now, the key principle here when studying the energy flow in an ecosystem is that energy decreases at each trophic level because organisms use most energy for metabolism, movement, and heat loss. Okay, so about 10% of the energy at one trophic level is available to the next. Kaya yung mga nakikita natin na mga food chains, they rarely exceed 4 or 5 levels. Okay? Ano yung mga implications nun? So, yung mga top na predators, they are fewer in number and more vulnerable to extinction. Mas malaki din yung biomass ng producers na kailangan kasi sila yung masuporta sa small biomass ng mga predators. Another concept then na some might find confusing with this concept ay yung food chain versus food web. So, tatandaan lang natin kapag food chain, single or linear yung pathway. For example, meron kang sun, plant, mouse, and eagle. So, isang diretso lang yan. A food web, on the other hand, shows multiple interconnected chains and is a more realistic depiction of energy flow in nature. Another concept here na hindi ko pala nailagay yung diagram is the energy pyramid. So kapag energy pyramid, um, yung mga producers, sila yung nasa base or yung nasa bottom, while yung mga top predators, sila yung nasa apex or nasa taas. So when you read the pyramid, you start always at the bottom to top. Okay? Lalo na when you answer typical exam questions about population size, biomass, and energy availability. So halimbawa, medyo nalilito kayo sa takbo ng question, you can first try to identify yung energy source. Siyempre, palagi namang sun yun. And then, you label the producers. You always label the producers first because everything else depends on them. And then, you try to label yung mga trophic levels. You write kung sino yung mga producer, sino yung primary consumer, secondary consumer, etc. And even the decomposer dun sa binigay na question. Then, you try to apply yung 10% rule if a question asked about biomass or population size at higher levels. So, yon kada jump ng trophic level, 10% na lang yung nakukuha nung susunod na level. Next, we have interactions between different species known as interspecific interactions. Now, all aspects of life depend on interspecies interactions. Ever since na nagkaroon ng life dito sa Earth, species have been competing for resources, eating or being eaten, parasitizing, and collaborating with each other. Interspecies interactions span from ecological networks that are important for conservation and biodiversity efforts then. So, from pollination services na kailangan or very important for agriculture to pathogen interactions na important when you track the spread of diseases in humans, plants, and even in animals. So, yun yung mga kahalagahan, or those are some of the importance of studying interspecies interactions. Another thing to think about it, then, an organism cannot be understood in isolation from other species. So we can only understand an organism if we know how this organism interacts with other species and its environment. So for this part, we'll define and describe each of these interactions by grouping them according to whether they have positive or negative effects sa survival and reproduction of each of the two species engaged dun sa interaction na yon. So for example, we have here competition. So si sub-adult male lion and yung spotted hyena sa Masai Mara. So, sa Africa yon. Now, these two species share the same ecological niche and are thus in competition with each other. So, kapag sinabi natin na ecological niche, it describes a species specific functional role or parang position niya within its ecosystem. So, a niche is different from a habitat kasi parang si habitat, parang siya yung address as it um kasi as it depicts parang yung lugar kung saan nakatira yung organism. While kapag sinabi nating niche, para siyang it represents yung profession ni organism. Okay? So, that's the key difference between niche and habitat. Si habitat parang address, si niche parang profession ng organism. So, in competition, itong dalawang organism na to, kasi para silang mga predator. So, they compete for the resources. Another example for competition is yung mga weeds na nag-grow or kahit hindi naman natin sila tinanim dun sa garden nila or sa garden natin, tumutubo pa rin sila. So, they are in competition with our garden plants for soil nutrients and water. So, predation is also a biological interaction where one organism, the predator, kills and consumes another, the prey, to obtain nutrition. Parasites that live within the body of the host, ang tawag sa kanila endoparasites. Ano yung mga example ng endoparasites? Like tapeworms. Okay? Meron din naman na mga parasites that feed on the external surface of the host, katulad ng ticks and lice or kuto. And so, ang tawag sa kanila ectoparasites. Now, hindi naman palaging negative yung interactions when it comes to interspecific interactions. Meron din naman mga positive interactions. A term na marerefer natin with the use of positive or zero interaction in which at least one species benefits and neither is harmed. So, positive interactions include mutualism, ito, and commensalism. So, cattle egrets feed on insects, flush out of the grass by grazing bisons, cattle, horses, and other herbivores. And because the birds increase yung feeding rates nila when following the herbivores, they clearly benefit from association. Much of the time, yung mga herbivores, they are not affected by the birds. Okay, so that's commensalism. For mutualism naman, may certain species ng acacia tree sa Central and South America na merong hollow thorns kung saan nakatira yung mga stinging ants. Now, yung mga ants na yan, they feed dun sa nectar na pinoproduce ng puno or ng mga acacia tree. And dun sa protein-rich swellings at the tips of the leaflets, ayan, dyan sila kumakain. Now, the acacia benefits because the ants, which attack anything that touches the tree, remove fungal spores, even small herbivores, and debris. It also, yung mga ants, they also clip vegetation that grows close to the acacia tree. So, yung mga ganitong klase ng interaction, they show or they depict mutualism. Let's try to answer this practice question. An introducing virus drastically reduces the population of a dominant starfish species in an intertidal zone. Shortly after, the populations of mussels and barnacles explode, crowding out almost all other invertebrates and algae, leading to a collapse in species diversity. What was the role of the starfish in this ecosystem? So of course, hindi siya yung primary producer. Hindi siya yung nagsusupply ng main energy source. Hindi naman siya nakakapag-convert ng chemical energy. Hindi rin siya parasite kasi saan ba siya nag-feed on? 'Di ba? So, ang tamang sagot dito or the correct answer here is letter D. Okay, so the correct answer is the letter D. It acted as a keystone species, preventing a single competitor from monopolizing space. So kapag sinabi natin keystone species, sila yung mga organism that helps hold this system or the ecosystem together. Yung mga keystone species na yan, they exert strong control on community structure relative to its abundance, often by keeping yung mga dominant competitors in check to maintain diversity. Okay, so kapag nabawasan or na-reduce yung population ng keystone species, medyo parang nagkakagulo or nagkakaroon ng collapse dun sa species diversity ng isang ecosystem. Kaya importante sila. Kaya nga ang tawag sa kanila ay keystone species. So we've examined how ecosystems function and how energy and interactions shape communities. Now we'll try to review how those communities change across generations. So evolution, it refers to the change in characteristics of a population over generations. So when individuals with certain traits fail to reproduce or they are removed, let's say, na extinct sila, the frequency of those traits in the population changes. And over time, yung average characteristic ng population, mag-shift yon, producing a population that looks and behaves differently from its ancestors. So, meron tayong tatlong scientists na hanggang ngayon pinag-aaralan natin yung mga theories nila. First, we have Jean-Baptiste Lamarck, who proposed that organisms acquire traits during their lifetime and pass those acquired traits to their offspring. Now, yung idea niya, na-highlight nun yung isang bagay. It is that the environment can change an organism's phenotype. So, kapag sabi natin phenotype, ito yung mga characteristics or yung mga traits na nakikita natin physically. Okay? Katulad ng kulay ng buhok, kulay ng mata, kulay ng skin tone, height, size natin, ganon. However, Lamarck was incorrect about heredity. Acquired changes do not alter yung genetic code or yung DNA in a way that is reliably passed to the next generation. Modern genetics shows that heritable change requires alteration of the genetic information or the DNA or selection on existing genetic variation. We also know about Charles Darwin and Alfred Russel Wallace, who independently gathered evidence showing that populations change because individuals with advantageous heritable traits leave more offspring. So si Darwin, pinangalanan niya yung process na yon na natural selection. And describe niya yon dun sa libro niya na On the Origin of Species or dun sa study niya na On the Origin of Species. Now, according to him, natural selection explains how traits that increase the survival or reproductive success became more common across generations. So, let's talk more about evolution in the following slides. So, sila Mark, pinublish niya yung hypothesis niya in the 1800s by comparing living species with fossil forms. And nakita niya doon na what appeared to be several lines of descent, each with a chronological series of order to younger fossils, nagli-lead yon sa mga living species. And explain din niya sa findings niya using two principles. Ayan, yung idea niya ng evolution. And that time, ito yung two principles na tanggap ng scientific community. So, yung una dito ay yung use and disuse. So, yung idea na to, it's the idea that parts of the body that are used extensively or palaging ginagamit, they become larger and stronger, while those that are not frequently used deteriorate. And among many examples, he cited a giraffe stretching its neck to reach leaves on high branches of trees. On the second principle, the inheritance of acquired characteristics, it's stated here na an organism could pass these modifications sa offsprings niya. Ang rason kasi dito nila Mark na yung mga long necks ng mga living giraffe, nag-evolve siya over many generations as giraffes stretch their necks even higher. So, para sa kanya, kada nag-stretch yung neck ng giraffe, yung pagkakagamit na yon ng giraffe na yon, napapasa niya yon dun sa mga offsprings niya. Kaya yung nakikita nating mga giraffe ngayon, malalaki or matatangkad yung mga neck nila or yung mga leeg. However, it's in the past na, yung theory na yon. Parang in-explain lang noon yung history on how yung pagkakaintindi natin sa evolution evolved then over time. Dito sa principles of natural selection, meron tayong tatlong principle. Una, traits are inherited from parents. Inherited in a way na from the genetic information. More offsprings are produced that can survive, and individuals vary in traits. So, para sa natural selection, ito yung mechanism na nag-explain how heritable traits can affect survival and reproduction become more or less common. So, gagamitin natin na example yung nasa diagram na to ng mga mice on dark rocks. So, every population contains genetic variation. Sa atin, ng mga humans, we differ in traits such as eye color, hair color, size, or even yung speed natin. Speed when it comes to walking, running, and etc. So, yung mga differences na yon, they arise from mutations, recombination of genes, and the reshuffling of genes during reproduction. However, not all differences matter for evolution. Only those that are heritable or yung mga genetic traits o yung mga traits na encoded sa DNA which can be transmitted to the next generation. Now, if a trait that improves survival or reproduction is heritable, yung frequency nun or yung dalas ng pagkakakita natin ng trait na yon, it will increase over time. Because natural selection occurs because of the individuals with certain heritable traits leave more children than others. Here in our example, predators more easily spot yung mga tan na mice sa dark rocks. So, tan mice are eaten more often. So, yung mga black mice, they have higher rates of survival and therefore contribute more genes to the next generation. So, yung unequal reproductive success na to, ito yung nagpapagana ng selection. Ito yung nagpapagana ng natural selection. Because black mice reproduce more successfully sa dark rock environment, yung next generation nila, mas mataas yung proportion ng mga black mice over tan mice. And now, over generation, makikita na yung process na yun, it can shift the population's average traits and produce adaptation dun sa local condition nila, which nga yung environment ng dark rock. So always remember na yung evolution, population level siya. It's a population level change across generations. Hindi lang siya basta an individual becoming better during its lifetime. Hindi siya ganon. Hindi siya parang nag-change or hindi nag-shift overnight yung evolution. Again, it must be across generations para makita. Adaptations naman, these are traits that increase the fitness in a given environment. They emerge from selection, acting on variation. So, hindi sila purposeful or goal-directed. Natural selection filters existing variation. It does not design traits with foresight. So, sa mga exam, we can immediately eliminate yung mga choices na nag imply ng choice, desire, or immediate transformation ng genotype or ng genetic traits due to use or need. So now we turn to the evidence or evidences that support evolution. Ito yung mga observable patterns and data na ginagamit ng mga scientists to show that species share common ancestry and have changed across generations. Una na dyan, yung mga fossils. Fossils provide direct evidence of past life. Meron tayong tinatawag na transitional fossils which show intermediate forms that link major groups. For example, itong kay Archaeopteryx, uh, they combine yung reptile and bird features to illustrate how flight-capable birds evolved from dinosaur ancestors. The fossil record documents descent with modification, meaning older layers contain simpler or ancestral forms, while newer layers show derived traits. Another evidence of evolution is biogeography studies, where species are distributed across geographic space. So, yung mga island species, they often resemble yung mga species sa mga malapit na mainland area or yung mga, meron sila mga mainland relatives, pero nagpapakita sila ng unique adaptation. So, yung unique adaptation na yun yung pattern na nakita ni Charles Darwin to infer common ancestry and local adaptation. Next, we have homologous structures, which are body parts in different species that share a common structural plan, but they serve different functions. Katulad ng forelimb sa mga buto ng humans, sa cat, sa whale, and sa bat. So, yung um, kulay orange dito, yung radius, yun yung four-limb na buto. Kung makikita natin dito, pare-parehas silang mayroong orange na buto. Pare-parehas sila may four-limb. Pero, magkakaiba yung naging function nila. So, yung similarities na yan, they indicate common ancestry rather than independent design. Okay? So, that's homologous structure. Now, may mga questions about comparative anatomy na magtatanong ng similarity due to shared ancestry. So, yun, homologous structures o kaya similar function. So, kapag similar function yung tanong, that's analogy naman. Hindi siya homology or homologous structure. So, may encounter din kayo na term about vestigial structures. So, kapag narinig nyo or nakita nyo yung term na yon, these are reduced or non-functional remnants of features that were functional in ancestors. So, kaya, halimbawa, yung mga ancestors ng whales, may pelvic bone sila dati. Pero yung mga whales ngayon, hindi na nila kailangan ng pelvic bones. Pero meron pa rin pelvic bones tayo makikita sa ibang species ng whale. Or pwede din naman na yung human appendix. Walang function sa atin ngayon yung human appendix pero meron pa rin tayo. So vestigial traits are powerful evidence for evolutionary history because they reveal past functions that have been lost or reduced. So we will finish this lecture with one last practice question. In a population of beetles, some have green shells and others have brown shells. Birds more easily spot and eat the green beetles on tree bark, while brown beetles survive and reproduce more. Which statement best explains this? So the correct answer here is letter C. Brown coloration gave a survival advantage. So those beetles, yung mga brown colored beetles, they reproduced more. Again, natural selection favors traits that improve survival in a given environment. So brown beetles, they blend they blend in better dun sa tree bark kasi kakulay nila yung tree bark. And so they survive the predation ng birds and they pass on their traits dun sa mga offspring nila. So I think this is the last slide for this topic. Thank you for watching this video, and one tip that I can leave with you is to keep practicing yung mga scenario questions katulad nito para mas magkaroon tayo ng confidence when it comes to taking or answering yung mga entrance exam questions.